Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today, we wanted to kind of stick in this same segment of film review and kind of taking a look at players that will have a big impact in 2021. And the next on our list is Kenny Golladay. And I think we can all be pretty assured that he is going to bring another element to this offense for Daniel Jones. We know Jones is a very accurate deep ball thrower, but he only threw deep 20 plus yards on less than 10% of his throws last year. Jason Garrett just couldn't really scheme him open or scheme that ability for him because, the offensive line didn't hold up. Our weapons on the outside, were pretty predictable. Teams were running cover 1, cover 0 against us and pretty much shutting us down in the passing game. And Evan Ingram really was our only legitimate deep threat aside from Darius Slayton. And I think Slayton had a foot injury picked up during the mid-year. So I think, this upcoming season should present a better opportunity for the Giants to take a step forward in moving the ball downfield. And Kenny Golladay is going to be that catalyst. He is one of the best deep ball receivers in the NFL. He's a possession guy, big body, and he's faster than he looks. He has really long strides. He can outrun some corners, and physically, he's unmatched. You'll see in the film review, the first play, guy makes a tremendous grab, jumping over a defender. And if your team doesn't have good corners, he's going to take advantage. You can't really stop him. And Detroit did a lot of interesting things with him to get him open, not only in the deeper portions of the field, but also getting him open, from a slot position and dragging him across the line of scrimmage and doing unique things to try and get the ball into their best players' hands on offense. And I'm excited to kind of dive into Kenny Golladay. And Anthony, I know you're a big proponent of Kenny. You were begging the Giants to sign him months and months ago. And you were like, we were talking about it, and it was like, not really optimistic that they would be able to do it, but they managed to grab him. And now we have one of the best receivers in the NFL for Daniel Jones. Really excited, my friend. How are you doing today? And what are your thoughts on big Kenny Golladay?
Yeah, I'm doing real good. And of course, Kenny Golladay, as many of the viewers of this podcast or YouTube channel know, if you've been watching or keeping up with us for a long time, back in October, before Kenny Golladay was a free agent, long before he was a free agent, when the Giants inquired to trade for Kenny Golladay, I said this is the perfect wide receiver for the Giants to go after. Knowing that he was going to be a free agent in the upcoming offseason, I said that this should be the Giants' number one target when the offseason rolls around. Thankfully, I was right. The Giants, they did make Kenny Golladay their number one target. They went out and got him, and now they have a wide receiver one, a primary receiver on their team, an alpha dog receiver that they just hadn't had for years, not since Odell Beckham Jr. was traded away in 2019. So now you kind of have a really great piece for Daniel Jones to use to try and break out going forward. So Kenny Golladay is going to do a lot of things for this offense, but he's also going to help other players be better, which is going to be Daniel Jones. He's going to help Daniel Jones be better. He's going to help Saquon Barkley be better by opening things up in the running game because he's taking so much pressure on the defense in terms of challenging them vertically. Because as Alex mentioned, he is one of the top 3 deep threats in the NFL. The statistics back that up. He has phenomenal receptions downfield, receiving yardage. I think he's 3rd in the NFL since 2017 or 18 with deep receiving yardage because he just challenges defenses vertically. He's got that big frame. He can go up there and make those 50-50 balls. He just has a knack for going deep and coming down with the football. Of course, he was playing with Matthew Stafford, who is an excellent deep ball passer. But now he's playing with Daniel Jones, who's also an excellent deep ball passer. So I think we're going to see Kenny Golladay go vertical a lot for the Giants. I think this Giants offense is going to be a lot more vertical than it was this past year with Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett really struggled to push the ball downfield. But I think now you got Kenny Golladay and a lot better personnel for going downfield, particularly because of Golladay. And you also have Freddie Kitchens, who's going to have more involvement. I think the Giants offense is going to get a lot more vertical. And that vertical passing attack is going to be really efficient when you have a guy like Kenny Golladay on the outside.
Yeah, looking back at the 2020 season, he only played in 5 games, right? He was kind of injured, had a couple issues there, and didn't really play the entire second half of the year. But when he was on the field, he was a force, right? I mean, he really only played 4 full games. But during those games, the first 2 games they did play week 3 and week 4 against Arizona and New Orleans, he had over 50 yards and a touchdown, right? So he produced in the points. And then the next 2 games, he didn't score, but he had over 100 yards in both of them. With 10 combined receptions and over 215 yards. And he had an 85.7% catch rate in that last game he played before going down against Atlanta. And he had insane just performance, just making catches all over the place as a big possession guy, contested catches. He took a few big hits, I recall. And you know what? He battled on. And I'll say Kenny Golladay is going to bring another element to this offense, as I mentioned before. Daniel Jones has never had a wide receiver one, true and tried wide receiver one. And the Giants made it a a priority to go and get him one, because they traded Odell Beckham Jr. right before he had a chance to really play with DJ, and they gave him, Sterling Shepard, who's good but not great. He's not a number one. They tried to give him Golden Tate. He was washed. We had UDFAs starting for him, and Daniel Jones finally is getting the resource allocation that he needed to take a step forward. Now, it really all depends on the offensive line for them to take that next step forward. They have the talent, and we know Kenny G and Daniel Jones have been hanging out. Kenny Golladay called him his boy a couple weeks ago. They've been training together, getting some work in during OTAs, and just getting the rhythm down, just, tossing lightly, getting some timing stuff figured out. But I think this training camp session is going to be tremendous because, one, it's in person, and two, they're going to be learning and studying the film together. Because last year, the Giants didn't have that luxury. Daniel Jones didn't have the luxury of learning a new system under Jason Garrett in the building with his teammates, with the coaches. And now they'll be able to do that in person and then go out and apply it on the field, right? They'll look at the film. They'll be like, Kenny, let's go out onto the field and let's put it to the test. Let's apply it, and not just go right into the regular season having not applied any of these different metrics, any of these different timing routes that they established. So I think it's gonna really do a lot for Daniel Jones's future. But Anthony, when you're looking at this wide receiver unit, we kind of ranked dead last year in yards after the catch. Do you think that this unit is going to take a significant step forward, before we dive into the film here?
Yeah, I absolutely do, because I think the Giants just added so much talent to the unit. Of course, with Kenny Golladay being that number one wide receiver, and he's going to make the other wide receivers better. Having Kenny Golladay as your number one guy means that you don't have Darius Slayton going up against the number one cornerbacks. You have Darius Slayton now going up against CB2s, maybe even CB3s, or in some cases even CB4s, depending on the personnel package that the Giants put on the field. And of course, they also added Kadarius Toney. So you have Kadarius Toney, who's this elite yards after the catch guy, which you just mentioned the Giants ranked dead last in yards after the catch. Well, Kadarius Toney is going to instantly fix that. And so is another guy on the team who wasn't really playing last year, but he's back this year, Saquon Barkley. He's your perfect yards after the catch running back. He is one of the best receiving running backs in the game when he's healthy. Not saying he's at the Kamara or McCaffrey level, but he's pretty damn close. So you have him returning. You have Kadarius Toney added to the lineup. Those two are going to fix your yards after the catch. And then, of course, you have Kenny Golladay, who's going to fix your vertical threat, and he's also going to allow Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton to face easier matchups, let them be more efficient, and let all of these wide receivers just play at a higher level. Because last year, yes, Darius Slayton is a good player, and so is Sterling Shepard, but neither one of them are wide receiver ones. Neither one of them are guys who can go up against, say, a Stephon Gilmore snap after snap and win each and every rep. Kenny Golladay is going to win more reps than those two are against a guy like Stephon Gilmore every single game, just because he is such a talented number one wide receiver. But those guys are really competent number twos, and I think that's really good for the Giants to have two receivers who are really good number twos, plus this rookie who we think could potentially be a really good number two as early as his first season. So the Giants are kind of now loaded at the wide receiver position to have one of the strongest wide receiver cores in the NFL, which is kind of crazy to say because last year they had one of the worst. And now overnight, they've just kind of flipped over, and now they have one of the best. It's because of how much talent they added. And the main factor is the fact that Kenny Golladay just makes everyone around him better. So you look at Sterling Shepard and you look at Darius Slayton now in a different light than you did last season because Kenny Golladay is on this roster. I think that's exciting just to know what Kenny Golladay brings to this team and how much he impacts those around him.
Yeah, and just to build on that for a second, they didn't just add any players. They added players who are going to offer them an opportunity to get more creative and unpredictable, because Kenny Golladay, he's your vertical threat. John Ross, another vertical threat. Darius Slayton, vertical threats. Okay, we all know that those guys represent deep threats. Kenny Golladay also has a more refined route tree than all of them, which makes him that wide receiver one. We're going to take a look at that in a second. But then you go out and get a guy like Kadarius Toney, who operates in the middle of the field and really is great after the catch. That's another element to your offense that you layer on top of having possession, deep threat wide receivers, speed guys. Sterling Shepard, one of the best short yardage route runners in the NFL in terms of a slant kind of guy, a zig route kind of guy, quick outs. He's even not the worst on when you're throwing deep to him. He's really good ball control and really good eyes. But I will say this, all of their players have different strengths and weaknesses. And I really think that they're going to benefit each other tremendously when playing together. It's going to really build. And Anthony, why these sirens go by, talk about this little unit a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I love what the Giants built here. I love the fact that you do have a vertical threat with Kenny Golladay, number one guy. And then, of course, you have another pretty solid vertical threat in Darius Slayton. So you have two vertical threats on the outside, not just one. So he's not really challenging the defense. You have two, and that really opens things up underneath. A guy like Sterling Shepard, a very refined route runner, can work inside or outside from the slot. He's probably better from the slot, but of course he has played the Z a lot these past couple of seasons. And then of course Kadarius Toney also working underneath, being your yak guy, being your short intermediate route running guy. And then we also haven't mentioned the tight ends yet. Evan Engram, this is going to open things up for him because he's also a vertical threat from the tight end position. And then you have Kyle Rudolph, who's kind of the exact opposite of Evan Engram, which is perfect. So now you have Kenny Golladay pushing things vertically, open things up underneath for Kyle Rudolph, who's also opened things up vertically for Evan Engram. It all works hand in hand. The Giants, the way that they built this offense out this offseason was phenomenal. They knocked it out of the park, and you really can't say enough good things about it because overnight, like I said, they changed the way this offense looks. Last year, you're saying Evan Engram and who else behind him? You have a couple depth pieces, but no one that can really start. Now you have Evan Engram and Kyle Rudolph. Now you have Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Golladay, plus John Ross and Dante Pettis behind them. Solid depth there. They really revamped their offense. And honestly, I know people say, what about the offensive line? Daniel Jones, it's going to be hard to make excuses for him when you look at all the weapons that he's playing with this year.
Exactly right. So let's take a look at Kenny Golladay film. And I'll tell you what, right off the bat, the guy actually puts on a freaking clinic in terms of being a big possession receiver, having his eyes up and getting his body into a position where he can make a big time catch. Now they're playing Jacksonville here. It's a free play. The pass rusher on the bottom of your screen, and those for that are listening via audio. Little offside situation here. Matthew Stafford has an opportunity to launch a ball downfield, free play. Doesn't matter if it's picked off, doesn't matter what happens, but if it is a catch, it is fair play and fair ball. So Kenny Golladay, noticing this, just basically runs a streak right down the middle of the field. And I mean, you can't ask for a better possession receiver. He has his eyes up. The cornerback has his head turned around. He locates the football, jumps over the corner, makes a fantastic catch for like 50 yards downfield, and puts Detroit in a position to score immediately. Now, I think they end up kicking a field goal here anyway, but just the ability to diagnose what happens, it's an offside play, just to go up and get this football in. There's multiple defenders around him, so it's not like this is an easy catch. He has to realign his body, make sure he capitalizes on this opportunity, and he does so with ease. This is what happens when you have a 6'4" wide receiver. The Giants, I mean, he readjusts his body. The cornerback has no idea. He has his eyes up looking for the football. And I'll tell you what, the Giants haven't had a receiver like this in a very, very long time. OBJ makes this catch. Victor Cruz maybe makes this catch because he's a freaking animal back in the day. But I can't name any other guys that can readjust their body, go up and just bully cornerbacks like this on an every down basis. Kenny Golladay brings an element that we haven't experienced in quite some time. He's just an entirely different receiver to OBJ in general. You know, he'll make more contested catches than OBJ. He's not as a refined route runner. He's not as quick or electric, but if you throw the ball in his direction, such a big radius, he's more likely and inclined to catch the football, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course, Kenny Galladay's catch radius is insane, being the fact that he's 6'4", has that ginormous wingspan, very lanky and also very thick, like well built, strong outside wide receiver. You know, that physical presence that you need. I don't even know if this is a catch that you would count on Odell Beckham Jr. making. Odell's playing style is far different than Kenny Galladay's, but this is the exact catch that you would count on Plexico Burress to make, right? So that's kind of always been my comparison for Kenny Golladay in terms of four Giants wide receivers and a young Giants quarterback. It's always been the Kenny Golladay to Plaxico Burress and the Daniel Jones to Eli Manning. Eli Manning was a decent quarterback who was learning and growing at the beginning stages of his career, but needed a number one wide receiver. They went ahead and signed Plaxico Burress, who was that number one wide receiver, that outside guy that can go up there and make catches like the ones we just saw. Big guy, 50-50 balls are all his. And now you have Kenny Golladay, who, in short, does the exact same thing. Goes up there, makes those 50-50 balls, 6'4" outside wide receiver, number one guy. So when you look at a play like this and you just see him go over the top of another cornerback and just basically Randy Moss him, you can't help but think of Daniel Jones, Kenny Golladay, Eli Manning, Plaxico Burress. That's what I see there, and that's what really excites me because we all know how much Plaxico Burress did for Eli Manning's development in terms of making him push forward and become a franchise quarterback and ultimately win a Super Bowl with Plaxico. You kind of can't help but daydream about Daniel Jones having the same effect from Kenny Golladay.
Oh man, I would just absolutely love to have that same type of impact from a number one receiver for a quarterback. Because we know, just look at Josh Allen. Look what Stephon Diggs did for Josh Allen. That is what a wide receiver's impact can have on a quarterback. He can make him look like a top 10 quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, imagine Russell Wilson without DK Metcalf. And I'm not saying Russell Wilson is by any means being bolstered by his receiving core. Russell Wilson, in fact, probably makes his receivers look better than they are. But I will say this, having good receivers for a young quarterback like a Daniel Jones, like a Josh Allen, like a Trevor Lawrence, probably in Jacksonville, having good receivers is going to make them look better. Like, look what the Jets did for Zach Wilson. They had nobody, and then they went out, they got Corey Davis, they drafted Elijah Moore, they have Jameson Crowder, they have a couple guys. They're giving Zach Wilson what he needs to succeed, and that's exactly the opposite of what they did with Sam Darnold, So, and then the Daniel Jones and Giants situation, they traded the best receiver in the NFL, arguably at the time, right when Daniel Jones was about to get him, and then they gave him Golden Tate instead. Talk about killing your quarterback and really holding him back from developing. I think now in the third season, it's going to be a lot better for Daniel Jones to see this developmental leap because of the weapons he has around him, and all these different options. They're going to help him develop instead of vice versa, which is where like the Russell Wilsons, when you're already at that elite level, you're making the guys better around you. But I'm excited for Daniel Jones. Let's take a look for a second at Kenny Golladay. He's in the two spot. He's kind of playing right at the line of scrimmage here, and he runs a little quick out right at the goalpost. He has DeAndre Baker on him, and I'll tell you what, he bullies DeAndre Baker. It's not even close. He really just out physicals him. Oh, I don't even know how you say that. He's just overly physical. He's a big body. There's no way DeAndre Baker can get around him. And mind you, DeAndre Baker isn't a small corner, by the way. He has very good, tangible, physical traits. It was just really his, understanding. He was just so young. He wasn't really accustomed to the NFL yet. But I'll tell you what, he was in great positioning here. You can't ask for a cornerback to be in a better position. Kenny Golladay is just that much better and that physical and has very good hands.
Yeah, the Lions working out of that tight slots formation here in the red zone. And you really just love to see exactly what we were talking about earlier with Kenny Golladay, the way that he goes over the top of cornerback, 50-50 ball. Kenny Galladay's going up there and he's getting it. That's perfect coverage from DeAndre Baker. Basically, one thing I'll say, though, Kenny Galladay's best route is probably his deep out route. He runs that pretty much to perfection. Anything out breaking to the sideline, Kenny Golladay just destroys. We're going to see that a couple times in this film session. You're going to see Kenny Golladay on the sideline just making incredible catches because that's really what he does best, just outward breaking routes. And this is one of those right at the pylon. You got to keep your feet in bounds. You got to have incredible body control and concentration. He's able to do that, get his feet in, and also that insane catch radius, make the catch over a cornerback who's playing perfect coverage, is in perfect position to break up this pass, maybe even intercept it, but you're just bigger, you're stronger, you're taller, and you've got a better catch radius, so you're going to go up and you're going to grab it, haul it in, and keep those feet in for a touchdown. That's Kenny Golladay in a nutshell, and it's an incredible play that you'd love to see.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking right now, this freeze frame right here, DeAndre Baker is in the perfect spot to really make an interception or make a play, make an incompletion. And this ball is a little bit underthrown, right? Matthew Stafford underthrows this just by a foot maybe. But Kenny Golladay has the catch radius, like Anthony mentioned, to go up and make that contested catch. He's leaning backward, right? His body momentum is taking him forward. He's literally shifting his body backward. And this is something that I said before. Just insane body control, spatial awareness and body control that Kenny Golladay has makes him that wide receiver one. That's what makes him so good. Not a lot of receivers in the NFL can do this on the fly when you're moving in the air, readjust your body, open up that catch radius, and really out-muscle a cornerback that is in a perfect position to make a play on the football. And that is what makes Kenny Golladay so great and why you can throw the ball up to him on any point in the field, and he will probably have a good chance of hauling it in because he gets his body into positions that he gives himself a leverage, gives himself an advantage. And you're going to see here, I mean, DeAndre Baker, while he didn't play well in his rookie season by any means, this is a rep here that he should have won because he's in a perfect position. But when you have a receiver as good as Kenny G, sometimes you just lose, and he did. And there's not a lot of plays like this that Kenny Golladay loses. So really nice play here against the Giants. And they probably Dave Gettleman saw this firsthand and was like, this kid is special. He's a big possession guy. This is exactly what Jason Garrett likes. He loves those big Dez Bryant type of possession receivers who can push the field deep, out muscle guys in coverage. That's what Kenny Golladay will offer this scheme. Okay, so let's take a look over here. And wanted to show a little bit of Kenny Golladay in the open field. And you're going to see here that essentially when I was watching a lot of this film, a lot of teams and opposing defenses played cover 3 against Kenny Golladay. They gave him the underneath portions of the field. They just dropped back into deep coverage because they were terrified of him beating them deep. Because if you're in man coverage against him deep, you're going to lose. Like, he's going to outmuscle you. It doesn't matter where you are. There's a couple clips later on. You'll see that he completely just washes these corners in man coverage that are going deep. And here you're going to see DeAndre Baker essentially just playing off ball, cover 3. They're dropping back. And all Kenny has to do here is, okay, if you're going to cover me deep, I'm just going to sit down right in the middle of the field and collect this football easy. And he just sits down right in the middle of the field, wide open. He has about 5 to 10 yards of separation here. No one near him. And the word separation really should ring a bell for you guys, because we know the Giants only had one receiver last year that even reached the average mark in yards of separation. That was Sterling Shepard at 3 yards of separation per reception per target. So, or per route run. That's essentially the main point here. This is 5 to 10 yards of separation here. And it's just because he's taking what the secondary is giving him, right? The secondary is giving him a lot of room to work with. They're playing cover 3. They're not really worrying about the underneath route. I mean, this is James Betcher to a T. Let's give up a 25-yard freaking pass to the best receiver on the opposing team, one of the best guys in the NFL at the time, and just give him yards, free yards for everybody. Patrick Graham will not stand for this. So, there you have it. Kenny Golladay just sitting down, making a nice play.
Yeah, and we mentioned just a second ago how Kenny Golladay is so great on those outbreaking routes, but you're going to see him here running an inbreaking route, just showing that he does have a full route tree, as any WR1 needs to have, right? You need to have a full route tree, and Kenny Golladay has it. He can go in, he can go out, and that even applies to where he lines up. He can line up inside, he can line up outside. Kenny Golladay, just a phenomenal player that can do it all for an offense, which is what you need from your number 1 wide receiver. Giants haven't really had a guy that can do this in a couple of years, as we mentioned. Can go inside, can go outside, can run those in-breaking routes and out-breaking routes to a T, kind of just shredding up a good zone coverage here. Looks like it's a deep cover 2. Actually, this might be a cover 2 man, but it just got absolutely destroyed there. I can't even tell because I see man coverage on the top of the screen, but on the bottom of the screen, I don't know if DeAndre Baker just got lost or mixed up the coverage or what, but you see some zone underneath. But basically, you're just going to see Kenny Golladay take advantage of all of this confusion. Just go ahead and run this in-breaking route. There is 2 deep safeties, so you always know when there's 2 deep safeties, the pocket that you want to throw to is the middle of the field. That's what's going to be open. Kenny Golladay runs it deep enough to where the safeties are too far off, but he's also far enough behind the linebackers. So it's just perfectly run, great spatial awareness, and that's what you need to see from your WR1.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it looks like Janoris Jenkins on Marvin Jones is the only guy playing man coverage here, and everybody else is kind of playing zone.
Yeah,
I don't really know how this works.
Is weird. I mean, it could have been that you had a cover 4, I think. This could be a cover 4, and then you kind of have to play man coverage, basically, if you're Jenkins there, because you're just covering an entire quarter of the field. So I think that might be what's happening. Maybe this is cover 4 quarters, where you have 2 guys playing, those outside quarter positions, and that's probably what it was, and it just got a little bit screwed up, and Kenny Golladay just ran a nice route to the middle of the field, which is, again, the pocket that you want to throw into against this 2 safety deep coverage.
Right. And, let's take a look here, and you'll see Kenny Golladay here is on the interior on the bottom of the screen. And this is what I love about what Kenny Golladay can do for your offense, right? He not only can play big body X receiver on the outside, but he can also move into the slot. He can move into the Z. He can do a lot of variety of different things. And what Detroit did here was really, really smart. They got him matched up against Michael Thomas, and he was our backup strong safety, right? And this is an opportunity for Kenny Golladay to completely expose a reserve option for the Giants at the time. Love Michael Thomas, great special teams player, but he was not a good safety by any means as a starter. And Kenny Golladay, they scheme him right up Michael Thomas's alley, and there's no way he's catching up. This pass is actually behind him, but because of that big catch radius, you'll see Kenny Golladay makes a fantastic grab, and it's a nice 15-yard gain right beyond the sticks. Bam, easy as pie. And I'll tell you what, if you're going to have a weapon like Kenny Golladay, you got to be moving him around. You cannot. That's the problem that the Giants had with Darius Slayton last year. They only put him in 2 spots, right? They either put him outside outside as an X receiver, or they put him in the slot. And it was really rare that you saw him on the slot. They never really used him in those bunch formations. They really just used him as a solo guy on the outside running streaks and comeback routes. And with Kenny Golladay, Detroit uses him a lot differently. They really get creative with him. They use him on the outside, but they also shift him to the interior. They bunch him with duos. They bunch him with trios. And that's how you kind of expose these matchups. And they run him right down the gut of Michael Thomas, which is a really big mismatch for Kenny Golladay to expose. And he ends up, bam, the throw's behind him, but it's a nice grab, and he ends up with 15 yards, almost 20 yards there, and a first down. That's what I like about Kenny Golladay. You can really use him in different ways. He's not just an X receiver on the outside.
Yeah, and one of the things when you scout wide receivers or you break down their film, one of the big things that you look for is the ability to adjust, right? And so you're going to see here again, as Alex mentioned, this throw is behind him, but his ability to adjust here, reach behind, make the catch, and see how his legs are. They're just continuing to move. He's keeping himself in stride. He's not really losing a step. Of course, he has to slow down a little bit to make the catch, but he's still moving in stride, which is what you want to see. This is an excellent ability to adjust. A lot of wide receivers would have to stop completely in their tracks and try and turn around and attack the ball here. But Kenny Golladay, with that big catch radius and that ability to adjust, can catch it and keep moving, which is a pretty rare trait. You have to be a really talented wide receiver to be able to do that and keep going, especially at the NFL level. I do think that maybe to some extent Stafford threw this behind on purpose, as he saw Antoine Bethea starting to rise up into that zone and take away the sideline. But again, great ability to adjust there by Kenny Golladay. We just over and over are seeing that big frame come into play where he's just got such a big catch radius and could really catch the ball no matter where it is, just as long as it's in his general vicinity.
Yeah, and I like the Giants' offensive coordinators and play calling next year to do similar stuff like this in terms of getting him inside and attacking those mismatches, locate guys who are not starters and attack them over and over and over again, because you will beat them. And Kenny Golladay against Michael Thomas, I mean, this is a matchup I would love to see every single day of the week. So moving on to the next clip, this is Kenny Golladay against Green Bay, and he had a phenomenal game against Green Bay back in 2019. And you'll see, this is just a ridiculous catch. Another throw that's a little bit behind Kenny Golladay, a little bit late. But again, insane ability to get his feet in bounds, insane ability to reach back and make a grab in just immense pressure from the corner here. But he always manages to get his feet in bounds. We haven't seen a receiver with this type of foot placement and spatial awareness since maybe Amani Toomer. And you remember how Amani Toomer, how good he was at getting his feet in bounds on the sideline. Kenny Golladay is just as good. There's another clip you'll see in a couple clips here that you'll be like, oh damn, like this guy really knows how to get his feet in bounds. We saw it earlier with that play against DeAndre Baker in the end zone, managing to get his feet down. He did another one against Kansas City, very similar play, gets his feet down in bounds. But here you have him, just a tremendous catch radius. Again, he's physical, he's imposing. If you're a cornerback and this throw is right there, he's coming away with it. There's no way you're getting this out of his hands. Just an incredibly strong receiver. And if it's in the vicinity, he's probably going to make that grab. And just another great example of how he gets his feet in bounds at the same time.
Yeah, again, another outbreaking route like we were talking about earlier. He's so good when breaking towards the sideline. But I actually think this is like a horrible throw. It's behind. It's super late. This should be an easy interception. I don't think the cornerback was really ready for this because Kenny Golladay created so much separation. So you could see here at the end of the clip, the cornerback is just playing recovery. He's like, okay, I just got to get over there and tackle Kenny Golladay, push him out of bounds. He doesn't even see the ball coming until the very last second when Kenny Golladay is already catching it. Like, the throw is late, which is why this becomes a contested catch that Kenny Golladay just has to pull out of his behind, make a miraculous catch here almost. But the reason that he's able to do it is because he created so much separation on the outbreaking route. So the corner is so far out of position. He's just playing recovery. He's not ready to actually intercept this pass. He gets there at the last second. He's like, oh crap, the ball is here. And then it just flies in and Kenny Golladay rips it out of his hands. Kenny Golladay being that strong alpha male presence that we're talking about, being able to make all these contested catches on the sidelines. And that's the number one thing with Kenny Golladay. There's maybe one receiver in the NFL, Allen Robinson, who's better than him at making contested catches. Kenny Golladay 50-50 balls are really like 70-30 balls. It's unbelievable how good he is when making a contested grab.
That's exactly right. And, here we're going to see an interesting play. And this is another way I think Kenny Golladay could fit into this offense for us. Getting creative, right? We all talk about the jet sweeps, the end arounds with Kadarius Toney, and him being used in a gadget style along with just traditional slot receiver. But Kenny Golladay can also help you in different ways. And right here, you're saying there's no deep safeties. It's really hard to tell what this coverage is by Anthony. Kind of diagnosed it as a cover 2 man, but they use a flea flicker here to draw those 2 deep safeties in and make them bite. And then the Kenny Golladay is basically running free in the defensive backfield to see here. He breaks inside, wins that route already, and then they realize, oh crap, Stafford has the ball, and he already has a couple yards here. He's breaking away from this corner. I mean, look at the underrated speed of Kenny Golladay as well, though. He's breaking deep. He has 5 yards on his defender right now, and he's wide open, right in stride. Bam, defensive defender gets there just in time. But I'll tell you what. I want the Giants to get more creative, use some flea flickers, get Kenny Golladay downfield, and do things. If you're going to play that type of defense against the Giants next year, you're not going to have any deep safeties over the top. You're not going to have any safety valve and apex defenders. This offense needs to adjust and really get creative and trickery and have some sort of audible built into the system where Kenny Golladay can take advantage of a play like this.
Yeah, one thing that you notice here is Kenny Galladay's deep speed, going vertically. Like, he does separate and just continues to create separation on that corner. The only reason he's grabbed from behind here, in my opinion, is because that's Jair Alexander who ends up running him down. Jair Alexander, being one of the fastest corners and one of the best man coverage corners in the NFL, runs him down. But number 20, who was guarding Golladay, he wasn't going to stop him from getting to the end zone. You just see as soon as he breaks over the middle running this deep post, he just creates so much separation on number 20. It's not even funny. It's almost disgusting how much separation it creates. Just one-on-one man coverage, breaks inside, and he's gone. Jair Alexander, of course, had great instincts here to basically save this play and save a touchdown. But really what I see here, it's hard to tell what this coverage is because the Lions are in a very tight formation. They're in an I package, I believe, with, I think, 3 tight ends on the field, so 13 personnel. So everything tells you they're running the football, especially once they do the flea flicker. The running back literally has the ball in his hands. So all of those safeties and deep corners just bite down like they're getting ready to defend the run, which just leaves everything over top for Kenny Golladay. All he has to do, win your one-on-one matchup, breaking over the middle, and go get it. He does that because it's easy for him. One-on-one man coverage, you're not going to be able to stop Kenny Golladay. He does have that underrated deep speed that Alex just mentioned, and he's going to get vertical. So in terms of what coverage this is, I suspect it's a cover 2 man, and Jair Alexander was actually playing man, and then those 2 safeties were supposed to drop deep, but they both bit on the run fake, and then it just opened everything up over the top for Kenny Golladay. And, just a beautiful route with the deep post and easy reception, great deep speed to get wide open and just create a ton of separation.
Yeah, man. The guy, he does have some underrated speed, doesn't he? It really is nice to see. I think he's going to open up the field a lot for Evan Ingram, believe it or not. I think those guys tracking Kenny Golladay deep on the outside and having some cover 2 safeties back there, it's going to open up the seams for Evan Ingram tremendously. That's what I'm excited to see. Of course, I want to see Kenny Golladay produce, but I'm really intrigued by who else he's going to help with. Just with his presence alone is going to be so imposing and really help open up the field for a lot of other Giants players. And I think, guys like Evan Ingram, who operate the best running deep along the seams on those spray fades, drag routes. I don't want him sitting down in the middle of the field. I want Evan Ingram attacking those spaces that Kenny Golladay is drawing attention from. So I'm excited to see how he influences the rest of the Giants players as well. But let's jump over to this game here against the Chargers, and a beautiful in-breaking route for Kenny Golladay, kind of shading towards the seams here. He's running a streak, and he just manages to physically impose his cornerback, his defender, and makes a beautiful grab for a touchdown. And this is what you get from Kenny Golladay in man coverage. If you're not going to have a deep safety that's going to be paying attention to him, you can see the deep safety is following the guy running the seam route up the middle here, and he forgets that Kenny Golladay is behind him. And if you're going to leave Kenny G open, the quarterback, being Daniel Jones next season, needs to understand, just throw it up. That's what I loved about Eli Manning so much over the years. If he saw a play like this happen, he's like, screw it, I'm taking a risk. I'm throwing the ball. I don't care. That's what I need Daniel Jones to do. I don't want him checking down because he's afraid to throw it deep. I want him taking more risks. I want him throwing the ball downfield. If it's interception sometimes, so be it. It happens. But 9 out of 10 times you're throwing it to Kenny Golladay deep here, it's going to be a touchdown. It's not going to be an interception. Daniel Jones needs to be able to trust him going deep. He needs to understand that if he sees that safety shading away from Kenny G, he has to take a shot. And I think that's going to just be part of what this training camp is going to be focusing on. It's just getting that chemistry, that trust down for those 2 guys. And reading the field and reading the defense, because this is going to happen. You're going to see opportunities like this where the safety shades the other direction, because we have Darius Slayton and John Ross now. You're going to, or even Evan Ingram, you're going to see that safety shading away, and Kenny Golladay is going to have a free breaking route up the middle, and it's going to be an opportunity for Daniel Jones to sling it. I want to see him capitalize every single time.
Yeah, and I think that's really an awesome analysis because Daniel Jones did take a lot of one-on-one deep shots last season, but only when they were explicitly built into the scheme. Like you knew you had a one-on-one deep shot outside, so you took it, or you knew you had a one-on-one deep shot up the scheme or up the seam, and it was like built into the play where you knew that's what you were going to have. You knew there was a one-on-one against a certain coverage. That's the only time you really saw Daniel Jones take those chances downfield. Here on this play, I think it's a little bit different because you have so many moving pieces on this defensive play and this offensive play. I think this is very much you have to go through your reads, and if Kenny Golladay is one-on-one, you take it. It doesn't really look like it's just a built-in go route on the outside or go route up the seam like Daniel Jones's deep plays were last year. But this is also a perfect throw from Matthew Stafford, puts it high and away for Kenny Golladay to go up and get it. And that's what Daniel Jones is going to have to do as well. Put it up high and away so that the cornerback doesn't really have a chance to interfere with this. Not that he would have much of a chance anyway, since Kenny Golladay is stronger than pretty much every single cornerback in the NFL. And his catch radius is so insane, like we've been mentioning. But yeah, you're just seeing another play here, one-on-one, Kenny Golladay, great inside release off the line of scrimmage, create some separation there. And then
That
going
stacking,
vertically,
oh my God.
that you took the word out of my mouth, going upfield, stacking on top of the corner just to create that separation, create that leverage downfield. And that's ultimately what makes this catch so easy for him. He stacks over the top of the corner, so the corner has to fight through his
All the
back to get to the
leverage.
football. Exactly. He creates all of the leverage with that stack there. As you see right here, he stacks on top of the corner. Then even on the break inward, the cornerback is just behind him. He has to trail behind. So really job well done there. Great route running on this play. You know, he goes up and makes a 50-50 ball, which is what you notice first explicitly, but then you watch it again and you see, okay, this was actually created by great route running. He does a really good job creating the separation vertically there. And then just going up and getting it is easy. That's the secondary part for Kenny Golladay. That's like the easy guaranteed part, but the route running is what sets that play up.
Yeah, I mean, he ran a clinic. That was a clinic on how to run a deep route with in man coverage with no safety over top. He just stacks him, and then he could easily just go like a straight line, right? But instead, he bends back towards the boundary to stack him, and then he goes back to the middle because then he can kind of assure himself that cornerback is behind him. Right. Once he knows that cornerback is behind him and that he's not going to come over top, because if he runs a straight line, the cornerback could go over top of him or even undercut him. But once he stacks him, he leaves him behind him. He's completely behind him. And then he uses that big body to just body him out and just kind of slow down and then haul that pass in. And, that's how it's done. That is wide receiver one route running on a deep route. That is how you should do it. Kenny Golladay offers that now for Daniel Jones. You don't see guys like Darius Slayton run that type of route. It takes a very special deep receiver with possession, body, and frame to be able to run that route and completely wall off a defender like that. Slayton can do it, but he's a little bit smaller. He's not as imposing. He's not as strong, so he's not going to be able to fend those defenders off. They are going to go over top. They are going to get underneath at times. Kenny Golladay does not let them do either very often, which is why he is that good. But let's take a look at the last clip here, my friends. And I wanted to show this here because we've seen a couple of deep throws for Kenny Golladay, going deep, stacking the receiver. And here, a little bit later in the game, the Chargers are like, okay, we obviously know he's pushing the field deep. We're going to play off ball, kind of playing cover 3 here, and really just holding it down on the deeper portions of the field. And when you're going to do this, you're giving up the earlier portions of the field to Kenny Golladay, a wide receiver one. They see he's playing off-ball coverage. They adjust accordingly. They're like, Kenny, just run a comeback route. He's not even going to be close to you, and he has about 5 yards of separation here already. Bam. There's nobody there. There's no one even close to him. This is an easy first down, 20-yard completion. And really, that's what happens when you have a receiver that's so imposing downfield. It opens up the field for you in other ways. These comeback routes, just coming back into space. And I think Kenny Golladay is that good that he commands attention at certain portions of the field, and it really opens it up so that the offensive coordinator can adjust and take advantage of what the defense is giving him. And this here is exactly why that deep ball is so important, because it opens up the comeback route. The problem was last year, Darius Slayton, I think, was had an injury for the majority of the season. He just could not react fast enough, and opposing cornerbacks kind of just locked him down because of it.
Yeah, one key takeaway here. This is pretty much the analysis of Kenny Golladay as a whole, which you see on this play, which is pretty important, or at least on the last play you did. A lot of Giants fans were saying, Kenny Golladay can't separate. All of his catches, all of his targets are contested, right? He had the highest contested catch rate, completion rate in the NFL. So he's just making contested catches and contested catches over and over again. But that's not necessarily true. He's making those contested catches because he's so damn good at them, but that doesn't mean that he can't separate. Everyone was like, the Giants need a number one wide receiver who can get open, who can separate, not a guy who can go make those 50-50 balls, or at least all of the naysayers of the Kenny Golladay signing. Not that there was all that many of them. But then you're seeing a play like this where, one-on-one, he doesn't just have to go over the top of this guy and make a 50-50 ball. He drops his hips, stops on a dime, and separates and creates a ton of separation here on this little comeback route. This deep hook route is really what it is. And so basically you're going to see Kenny Golladay, not just a 50-50 guy. He is a guy who can separate and get open with good route running and run some routes, get himself open, create some plays even after the catch. Not on this play, but you'll see other plays if you go watch his film. He does have some yards after the catch. So not just a 50-50 ball guy. He can separate, can run some good routes.
Absolutely. And you know what? People that say that Kenny Golladay or the Giants seated at yards after, a separation kind of receiver that can get open. I just want a receiver who catches the freaking ball. How about that? I don't care how he gets open. I don't care, what happens. If they're throwing him the ball, catch the ball. And Kenny Golladay does that. I don't care how many yards of separation he has. He could have -4, but if he catches the freaking ball, which he does because he has that imposing body, he has the ability to contort himself, get his feet in bounds. He does. He can do those things. It doesn't matter of how many yards of separation he has if he catches the ball. But as Anthony pointed out as well, he can create separation, especially we saw before in the flea flicker. The guy absolutely toasted the cornerback on him on a deep route. And he's not the fastest guy on the field, but his strides are so long, it's hard to keep up with him at times, and like his arm, his wingspan, that's really what makes him such a great receiver. But there is one more clip here, and this is just an absolutely gorgeous play by Kenny Golladay. Like I said before earlier in the video, his ability to get his feet in bounds stands out routinely. And here, Matthew Stafford gives him a chance to make a really nice play. You'll see it from the all 22 angle where he gets his feet in bounds and he hauls this pass. And I mean, the throw is absolutely gorgeous, but the receiver has to do the part and really get his feet in bounds here. I mean, there's not much room for error, right? There's not much room for error here. This reminds me, of course, not even close to the Mario Manningham catch in the Super Bowl. Like, not even close. But what I am saying here is that the ability to get your feet in bounds, he drags those feet, and that the margin of error, rather, my dyslexia kicked in for a second, is very important in this situation because if this is a 50-yard catch right here. You take that back, getting those feet in bounds. Look at that. There is about 3 inches of space between his feet and the sideline, and he does this all the time, right? I don't think there's many catches where he doesn't get his feet in bounds. From the film, a couple of games that I watched, when he had the opportunity to get his feet in bounds, every time he gets them in bounds. And that big wingspan is what allows him to do it because he doesn't need to have the ball right in his breadbasket, right? He can stretch his arms out 4 freaking feet above his head, and his legs can be 5 feet behind him and still getting the ball in bounds. You know what I mean? So having that big body, that big frame, it does a lot of things for him, and he maximizes every part of it, right? He maximizes his wingspan, he maximizes his legs in those long strides and keeping his toes in bounds here. See, he has his arms deep. If you look at the other angle, they're a nice 3 feet out, 3.5 feet out, but his feet dragging behind. It's a perfect throw and just a perfect way to get your body in bounds and know where you are on the sideline. So just a great play from Kenny Golladay. That's the last clip, Anthony. I'll let you, if you have any other thoughts on this one.
Yeah, first thought that I'll mention is if you don't think that Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, you don't watch enough football. This throw is just insane. But secondly, I want to go back and look here at the release off the line of scrimmage because he does a pretty good job here against press jam coverage. They're trying to jam him at the line of scrimmage here. He does a good job just pushing that off. You could see he swipes that hand down, takes both of the corner's hands right off of him. Just a physically imposing presence, and then he goes vertical and does a good job staying on that same line, not getting too close to the boundary. He gets pretty close to the boundary, makes us a really tight throw, does kind of drift outside a little bit, but when he does release off the line of scrimmage, he does start to go back towards the original line and keep himself in a position where Matthew Stafford can make a throw accurate enough to keep it on the sideline there. And then, of course, it is a pinpoint throw. The accuracy is insane, but as Alex mentioned here, yes, his ability to keep his feet in bounds is really, really impressive. But also another thing that I noticed here, just thinking back to the Giants this past season and the wide receivers that they had on the field, when I saw a play like this where it was over the shoulder and they had to put their arms and stretch them out, kind of catch that in the basket throw. I saw Evan Engram drop one against the Eagles that still haunts us in our nightmares. I saw Darius Slayton drop one against the Bengals when Daniel Jones unloaded a 60-plus yard bomb. It traveled over 60 yards through the air if you go chart it, which I've done. That throw was a bomb, and Darius Slayton had his arms out, and he just couldn't haul it in. So you've seen a couple of times where the ball tracking skills for the Giants wide receivers last year wasn't all that great. When the ball was going over their shoulder and they had to outstretch their arms, either their arms weren't long enough to go out there and catch it, meaning that they didn't have this huge catch radius that Kenny Golladay has, or they just weren't that good at tracking the football through the air like that over their shoulder. But Kenny Golladay has that giant catch radius and has that ability to track the football downfield going vertically, which is why he's one of the best deep threats in the NFL. So that's another one of my key takeaways on this play specifically. But yeah, you're just seeing here clip after clip, incredible vertical presence, who's just going to open up the Giants offense in a cornucopia, basically. He's just going to do so much for this team. And the vertical threat that Kenny Golladay provides is unmatched by anybody else on the Giants roster. And I'm so excited to see him get to work with Daniel Jones, one of the most efficient deep ball throwers in the NFL last season.
And that's the thing, it really matches up well with what Daniel Jones does the best, and that's throw the ball deep downfield. And they got him a receiver who's going to maximize that strength. And I think that's the right way to approach it, right? You want to look at your quarterback, evaluate his strengths and weaknesses, and say, okay, his strength is throwing the ball deep downfield. He has good accuracy on that category. He has good power behind his throws. Let's go get him a receiver, rather, that can maximize that strength exactly. His weaknesses, probably throwing to the boundaries, deep outs, might be his weaknesses. Obviously, pocket awareness is something we need to improve upon. And that's kind of why the offensive line is still a major question, still something that the Giants might need to allocate more resources toward in the future. Still optimistic myself, but I want to see it rather than just talk about it, of course. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fireside Giants, looking at Kenny Golladay today and what he brings to this offense and how well he's going to make Daniel Jones' deep ball look this upcoming season, really hoping that he can produce, but also open up opportunities for the players around him. And that's really what excites me the most, is just how this offense can come together as a unit and maximize each other and not just individually. So really excited about this upcoming season, my friends. Training camp's going to be great. We're going to obviously be looking at all these players, these connections. Hopefully everybody stays healthy and fresh, and hopefully they learn the system to perfection leading up to the first game against Denver, my friends. But make sure to subscribe below again on YouTube. Notifications on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to tune into Tony's takes as well. New episode dropping very shortly for the members, and he's got his judge's gavel there. But guys, yeah, make sure to sign up to membership as well. Dropping the videos early. Obviously, when training camp comes around, we'll have a lot more to talk about, a lot more stuff to offer you guys in terms of exclusive live streams and giveaways and whatnot. So I'm excited for those opportunities as well, my friends. But we'll catch you guys